Well, good job overall, Nicole, on your submission. Please look over the comments I've made using track changes. You'll see them here on the site. A few things I'd like to say, though, is just be careful when selecting terms to use in your title and that they really do reflect what your paper talks about. The same goes for your abstract here. You're not really mentioning what your paper discusses, and you need to provide a little more on how the resources you introduce lend themselves to the field and not just highlight them. That said, though, your introduction is pretty good, but you could prove out some of your assertions a little more. So that could be strengthened a little bit, particularly in how they relate to what's being discussed later. And you have lots of citations, so that's good to see that you're very well read. The literature review, overall, that's pretty good as well, and you cover a lot of the bases. However, I would like to see the video game subtitle changed to either video games in education, with each genre looked at specifically as well as an overall reflection, or video games and incidental vocabulary learning. And I think the second might prove a better subtitle now due to your current structure. But there's still a bit of generalisation there too. And this in the preceding section felt quite long to read, and I think it would have been better just broken up with subtitles. I would have preferred subsections, perhaps on the type of games that have been used in education, with each section then profiling use of that type or genre of game and how it's been used in the educational context, and particularly for incidental vocabulary learning. At the moment, unfortunately, kind of reads as a bit of a jumble. So I would have liked to have seen a bit of subtitling or restructuring, and it's a very long read that needs breaking up into sections of focus. I think also that could be achieved by removing quite a big section, and a section that explains what Minecraft is, and you could probably use some screenshots as well in this. Because you do go into quite a bit of detail, and anyone unfamiliar with Minecraft is not going to really understand what you're talking about. As for the methods, I would have liked to have seen an introduction section here, just detailing what methods you actually used and how you went about doing this project. Also, you can just state the international age of Korean students. I don't think there's a need to state both the Korean ages as well. And you've also used a case study approach here, and I would like to know why you think that's the best or the most beneficial in your context there, and just bring in some citations that would prove that out. Probably change this subtitle too, maybe to something else that describes what actually happened and what you state what actually happened here. Again, the subject just needs maybe a little bit of tidying up and a bit of reordering, and along with a little bit of defining, because you've got Minecraft activity mentioned, but you don't actually state what that means. As for the remainder of the paper, the results discussion and the conclusion, you're talking about students learning all of this incidental vocabulary and using it to talk about references in Minecraft. But what is the real importance here? What is the meat of what you're finding out for each type of these words that they incidentally learn? For example, pork and pork chop. There are previous studies to show that using loan terms that are similar in Korean, that this kind of does interfere with replacing that loan with an English language term, and that Koreans do find it difficult in building these new meaning connections in just such instances. Aspects like this could have been explored a little bit more, with at least a few words on each of the terms that you've identified that students have incidentally learned, and perhaps too, you could have explored a bit more, tying back the material to the wider literature on vocabulary and vocabulary acquisition. And you do talk a lot about that in your literature review at the start. I suppose also you could have actually given students a small retention test, paper-based perhaps, or an in-class paper-based game, to see if they could remember the incidental terms at a much later date, and to find out if they really do know the meaning of the terms and what level of meaning That is, if the terms that you're looking at have different definitions in different contexts, and then if students could use the terms from the game in other contexts as well. And that would have been interesting to explore, but obviously you have constraints on your word count and whatnot. Overall, I like to say I think that you've really put forth a great submission, and as mentioned, please look over the comments I've marked up here and there, and please do get in touch if you have any questions or need some clarification on anything. I look forward to your final submission on this. Overall though, good job so far.